Hello everyone. Welcome back to Psychology Class for All. In today's session, I'm going to talk about one of the most powerful tools in statistics, the standard scores, also known as the Z score. It is the key to compare scores from different tests, understanding where a person stands in a distribution and interpreting data meaningfully. So a Z-score tells us how far a particular score is from the mean in terms of standard deviations. Think of it in this way. In a classroom test, the average score is 50 and the standard deviation is 10. If you score 60, how far are you from the average? Exactly one standard deviation above the mean. So your Z score would be +1. If someone scores 40, that's one standard deviation below the mean. Their Z score would be -1. So basically, a Z score standardizes every raw score into a common scale where the mean becomes 0 and the standard deviation becomes 1. Let's learn about the formula for Z score. Z is equal to x minus m divided by SD, where x stands for any raw score, m stands for mean of the distribution, and SD stands for standard deviation. So the Z score tells us how many standard deviations away we are scoring from the mean. Let's learn it with an example. Here we have got mean. This is the assumed data. Mean is 70, standard deviation is 10, and a student scored 85. Using that formula, Z is 85 minus 70 divided by 10, and the result is plus 1.5. Here plus 1.5 standard deviation says that student's score is 1.5 standard deviations above the mean, higher than the most students. If another student scored 55, then the result would be minus 1.5, that says below the mean by the same distance. Now the question is, why are Z score important in psychology? So in psychological testing, we often deal with the scores that come from different scales, for example, IQ test, aptitude test, personality inventories, and so on. But how do we compare them? Here is the trick. By comparing all scores into standard scores, we put them on the same scale. This helps us say things like an IQ of 120 and an aptitude score of 70 are both one standard deviation above their respective means. So Z scores make data comparable and interpretable. Now about properties of Z scores. And remember, these are very important for exams too. First property is the mean of all Z scores is always 0, because we have centered the distribution around the mean. Second is the standard deviation of Z score is always 1, because Z scores measure distance in terms of standard deviation units. Third is positive Z scores represent scores above the mean. For example, Z score equals to plus 2 means the score is 2 standard deviation above average. Negative Z scores represent scores below the mean. Again, the same example, if we'll take like Z is equal to minus 1, that means 1 standard deviation below average. The shape of the Z distribution is the same as the original distribution. If your raw score form a normal curve, Z score will also form a normal curve. Now I'll talk about some real life use, or in psychology, Z scores are used to standardize test results like converting IQ or aptitude scores. It identify outliers. Outliers means unusually high or low scores. Calculate probabilities in the normal distribution. Compare individuals across different psychological measures. For example, clinical psychologists use Z scores to understand how far a patient's performance deviates from the population average. To summarize, we can say that Z scores convert raw data into a common scale. It is used to compare different tests, identify patterns, and make fair interpretations. And that's it for today's session on standard scores. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Psychology Class for All for more easy explanations of psychology concepts. See you all in the next video where we'll explore more about Z scores. Thank you.